Hello and welcome to the Sports Leadership Playbook podcast. My name is Dr. Robert Pryor, and I'm happy to have our special guest join us today. Olivia Berry is the Director of Athletics at Emmanuel College in Boston, and she is a graduate of the Master of Sports Leadership program at Northeastern. So welcome, Olivia.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Pryor. It's always great to see you at least once over the summer, so I'm glad to add this one in as well.
Great, thank you. Could you give a quick overview of your career journey from being a student athlete to where you are now as the Director of Athletics at Emmanuel?
Absolutely. So I have been an athlete lifelong. I grew up right outside of Boston and ended up going to Trinity College, played softball there for 4 years. Thoroughly loved my experience. Didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do when I grew up, but knew that athletics needed to be a part of my journey. So senior year, I applied to the sports leadership master's program at Northeastern, ended up getting into the program and knew that it was the next step of my journey. So I moved from Connecticut back up to Boston, was in the program, and at the same time, I was actually an assistant coach at Emmanuel for our softball program. Luckily enough, the club director of the softball program that I grew up playing on was the head coach at Emmanuel at the time. And I called him to let him know he's a mentor of mine. He's probably the best mentor I have. I called him and I said, hey, I'm coming to Northeastern for grad school. And he said, okay, you're my assistant coach. So I coached with him for 2 years. They were phenomenal 2 years. Coached some of the best student athletes that I've been around. Graduated from Northeastern and ended up going down to Wesleyan University, technically as a graduate assistant, but did not get a second master's while I was there. Coached there for 2 years and had a very, very good experience, all-encompassing experience there, all-encompassing experience. A lot was put on my shoulders due to some unfortunate circumstances for the head coach at the time, and being a 24-year-old, really needing to take the reins on some things was difficult. And again, because it was unfortunate circumstances, I kind of put my head down and said, I'm going to do what I can. And it was 2 years of a lot of learning, and I would never go back on that 2-year experience. I figured out what I was good at. I figured out the things that I definitely was not good at, and I figured out the things that I needed to learn. So after those 2 years, the head coaching position at Emmanuel had opened up, and my family is all in Massachusetts and around the Boston area, and I said I would like to go back home. So I applied for the position. It previously had been a part-time role, and I said, I need it to be full-time in order to take this position. So I ended up being hired as the head softball coach and assistant sports information director, which I give all the props in the world to folks in athletic communications. It is sometimes a thankless job and a lot of hours, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. So it was, I did that for a few years and learned a lot about the operations of what it means to not only run a program while I was coaching, but also run contests, run tournaments, make sure our social media and our website was up to date. So learned a lot during that time. And kind of as the years progressed, I transitioned away from sports information, moved into the senior women administrator role, and had a lot of different things kind of that I asked for come onto my plate. Scheduling, academics. I worked with our faculty athletic reps. So really tried to make sure that I was learning as much as I could along with coaching. I coached for 6 seasons. I thought I was going to be coaching for a very, very long time. And in my 6th year, the director of athletics position opened. I was excited to find our next athletic director, and a couple folks on campus came to me and said, would you consider it? I did. I went through the interview process that was incredibly lengthy with some external candidates, other internal candidates, and I used it to not only be interviewed, but interview the institution and figure out, is this a role that I really wanted to transition to? And I ended up being named in February of 2023. that last year I ended up coaching and being the director of athletics through that final spring semester. So um, I I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It was a grind of a last season. I had a lot of fun, um, and then transitioned to director of athletics only in May of 23, and I've been doing that role since then.
Very good. Well, congratulations on being named athletic director 3 years ago, and you've done an outstanding job
Thank you.
in that role.
Thank you.
Olivia, could you fill us in what your typical schedule is? Right now, it's preseason, just about to begin. So, how do things occur now in August when things start off in the fall?
Definitely. Yeah, I think right now I say to my staff as much as possible, what can we do right now that's going to alleviate the headaches come September through December? Right now is a lot of planning for what we have upcoming, making sure all of the schedules for all of the programs are set. We have the transportation set, if there's any hotel rooms that are needed, meal allocations. The thing that I've been really working on is budgeting. The new fiscal year began on July 1st, and that means at the end of the last year, we're making sure that we're closing that out appropriately. So, anything that we can do right now to help all of our programs moving forward and kind of creating as best of a student athlete experience as possible. So that's kind of the planning of this upcoming year, this really semester specifically, but what we can do to help the entire academic year. And our students move in middle of August. So once they get back on campus, it is head down and just grinding, making sure we are fulfilling everything that we need to compliance wise for the NCAA. Making sure that they understand the resources that they have available to them as student athletes. We're a Division III institution, and even though we don't provide scholarships or athletic scholarships, we provide a lot to all of our students on campus, whether it's academic resources, through our career center. So we want to make sure that our student athletes understand those resources that they have at their fingertips with that added, I guess you can call it pressure that they have as being a student athlete. So that's really what we try to do those first couple of weeks with them being on campus without being in classes, and then also preparing them for their sport. September 1st is really when all of the contests start. So you have a solid 2.5 weeks of making sure those resources are there, but also making sure that they are healthy physically, mentally, emotionally for their sport. I think it is a blessing being a fall sport because you get the time to move in early and get a lot of those resources that some of our other programs don't get at the beginning. And then once September starts, all of our classes begin. And again, it is making sure our student athletes are going to class. I say be the ones that are sitting in the front of the classrooms, hopefully not on their phones, and engaging with our fantastic faculty here at the college as well. And throughout all of this time, I oversee our business operations is a large portion of what I'm doing all year long. Our advancement and our fundraising, making sure that our giving days and any conversations that I need to have with donors or folks that are going to help better the student athlete experience directly, I'm having those conversations. And then at the end of the day, I'm overseeing all 18 of our varsity programs. So I have a lot of coaches, a lot of support staff that report to me. I find it incredibly important to be in the office and being available. I'm in meetings all day long, whether it is within our athletic department or being the advocate for our student athletes across our campus. Because there's some faculty members, there's some staff members that don't know the benefits of being a student athlete. And it is my role to advocate for them and also to share what our mission is along with the college's mission, to recruit the best students to Emmanuel that also happen to be student athletes, have them graduate in 4 years and then go be really high class individuals moving into the working world. So I hold that advocacy piece as a major aspect of my role on the day-to-day, again, throughout the year.
Right. You mentioned your Division III program, you don't give scholarship money out, but with the new rules when it comes to transfers, has that impacted Division III as much as you see in Division II or Division I, where players may be bouncing around from year to year?
I think that we definitely have not seen it. There has not been the impact on our level as much as it is on the Division I or Division II level. I will not say that by any means. With that being said, I also think our student athletes, because of social media and the 24-hour news cycle, they see that you can go and you can leave one place to go to another and see if the grass is greener somewhere else. So I think when there are changes, whether it's coaching changes, philosophy changes within a program, student athletes are more willing to go into the transfer portal. That doesn't necessarily always mean that they're going to land somewhere else.
Right.
So I think what the transfer portal has created to see what other opportunities are out there and to see if the grass is always greener, that does affect us. But I think the actual impact of transfers coming in and out is we are nowhere close to the numbers that our friends at Division I and Division II are seeing.
And having been a former coach, you need that continuity, and you need to have those rosters stay together for 4 years, because when you bring in a young player, you need to develop them. But if they're moving on, it's a tough balancing act to have that consistency from year to year.
Absolutely. And at the Division III level, one of my philosophies with coaching was during the recruiting process, I watched a student athlete or a club player on the bench and the way that they were interacting with their club coach to at high school games. What did they throw their helmet? Were they really upset after they struck out? And you could see that on them, because those were things that weren't a part of my program. And granted, they were young, they're high school players. Maybe there's things that we can adjust, we can grow. But I think it's sometimes hard for coaches nowadays that we'll use basketball, for instance. You have a 20-point or 2010 person in the portal. It's really hard to say no to somebody that's scoring 20 points and getting 10 rebounds.
Right.
Despite some of the necessarily not great things, whether it's attitude, sportsmanship, whatever else it may be. And also they're older. So is it more difficult to make those attitude adjustments? So I am a big proponent of growing a program from the ground up, and that's through the recruiting process. And at the end of the day, transfers, it's going to be a thing. We have them coming in and out every single year. But I really encourage our coaches to do their research on why somebody is looking to leave. Are they looking to just leave a situation that's not great for them? Are they from the Boston area? They tried to go out west and they want to come back home. Those are all situations that are definitely understanding, but really getting to know the transfer student in that, again, second recruiting process that they're going through.
And I would think that there's opportunity for high school athletes to come directly into a Division III program, where some of those D2 and D3s are just cycling fifth years through, like they're looking for experienced players, where the high school student athlete knows if they go to a D3 school, they might have a chance to play right away.
Absolutely, and make a direct impact right away. And I think impact is interesting. It's not always the stats that you show that it means what your impact is. And I think there are, at the higher levels, Division I's, Division II's, you might not be able to make that impact on that every single day that a first year at a small Division III is able to make. It's the small fish in a big pond versus the vice versa of that. And we have the benefit at a small Division III of being able to really give our student athletes a high-class experience and come and be a big fish here. We're a small pond, but come and make that big impact.
And the ultimate goal should be to get your degree as well. And that's why you're going to college. And that's part of what you sell them on. You're going to come away with a degree that's going to prepare you for the next stage of your career and your life, which is to work. And I think they probably get that when they come to Emmanuel.
Definitely. It's our jobs are recruitment, retention, and then getting them to graduate and then bringing them back to campus once they're alums. that is, our graduation rates continue to be high every single year, and that is something that is a feather in the cap to all of our head coaches, and is a number that I really hold to be incredibly important to us as a department.
Absolutely. So could you explain what the biggest adjustment was for you, going from being a coach to being an administrator and then ultimately as the athletic director? What were some of those challenges and the biggest adjustment you had to make?
Definitely. I think for me, being an internal candidate and going from a colleague to a manager was a massive, massive change for me. I had worked at the college for 6 years when I made that transition, and there were folks that I were colleagues to that I considered friends, and now I am overseeing them in their program.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a bit of a whirlwind, and I tried to, as best as I could, really that first year and a half, to sit back and listen and to hear what the positives and the negatives were for my coaching staff, and then adjust after that point. I didn't want to make sweeping changes moving into it. So that was definitely a major adjustment for me. And then from coaching to not coaching, I always said I coached because I wanted to have those relationships with the student athletes. It was something that was incredibly important. I wanted them to have the best experience as possible. And I didn't care about how fast they threw the ball or how hard, or how, if they hit 10, 15 home runs a year. Things were important. The winning was important. But what does athletics provide you that I know is you're going to keep for the rest of your life? And now, from the position that I'm in, I don't necessarily get that day-to-day student athlete direct impact that I had when I was a coach. But I know that the impact that I have on all of our student athletes, they might not know it on the day-to-day. And they don't need to know it. But when we are bettering our fundraising efforts, when we're bringing back the Hall of Fame, which brings in more donors, when we started the golf tournament that brings in tens of thousands of dollars, all of that ends up having a direct impact on our student athletes. And that is incredibly important. So do I have those really close relationships with student athletes where if they are struggling in a class to going through a breakup, they're coming and talking to me? Do I have those? Not necessarily. But I know the greater impact and kind of the macro level perspective is something that is really special to me. And the reason why I thought the transition was going to be something that I wanted to move forward with.
Right. And now you're overseeing 18 teams as an administrator. So you get to know student athletes in all those programs where before maybe you were just focused on 20 or so softball players. And now you've got more children, so to speak, right?
Yes, absolutely. One thing that when I transitioned, I really wanted to make sure that I was getting to contests for every single one of our programs. And the first couple of years, I would go to the end of the year conference championships for indoor track, outdoor track, and I would always try to get to a couple of our golf matches. And the amount of student athletes that came up to me and just said thank you for being there, for our non-traditional, I guess you call them, sports, it baffled me. And they just wanted to be seen in a way that they necessarily hadn't felt. And I don't think I realized the impact that I could have on them feeling supported as our student athletes, and knowing how tough it is to be a student athlete nowadays. Just showing up and being present for them and saying hello to them when they're walking into the dining hall. It's those small things that are really impactful. And I know when I was a student athlete at the time, our athletic director, Mike Renwick, it felt like he knew every single student athlete's name. And I always took that, and I took him in such a high regard. And it's something that I think about often, is how do I make sure that our student athletes know that we care about them, know that they are really, really special individuals, and know that we only want what's best for them.
Right. Well, you've made that adjustment well, and being the athletic director now for 3 years, seeing how well the programs are doing, and I know that you've got a great support staff there that believe in you, and that's what leadership is all about, right? Is trying to find a way to get a group of people to buy into your philosophy and your vision, and to go from point A to point B, and to capitalize on their strengths and bring out the best in everybody, because you're a collective group. It's not individual teams, and it's really about the entire athletic program, and it takes a good leader, a strong leader, to make that happen.
I appreciate that. I say it at the beginning of every single staff meeting that we have is thank you to whatever is going on. So if we just had our golf tournament, I try to thank my staff, because there are some things behind closed doors that I have to deal with that I'm the only one that deals with, but on the day-to-day, the ones that are really doing the hard grind with our student athletes, whether it's our athletic trainers that are here from all hours of the morning till all hours of night, physically and mentally keeping our student athletes together, to our athletic communications staff that if we don't have them, recruiting isn't happening. Today and nowadays, retention might not happen because our student athletes want that recognition through social media. And then also alumni engagement. There's so many folks that report to me that make this place continue to run. And I try to, as best as I can, give them those resources in order to do their jobs effectively, and then advocate for the work that they're doing, because they're the ones that, at the end of the day, if our student athletes, when we won the Women's Commissioners Cup for our conference this past year, first time in a long time that we've done that. That's not just the student athletes that are doing it. It's our head coaches, it's our part-time assistant coaches, and every single member of our support staff that are really leading the way and making that all possible.
And it's a great accomplishment and great to be recognized, because it does trickle down to everybody that has a part in that across all the programs.
Absolutely.
That's a great accomplishment. As we wrap things up here, I wanted to ask you one more thing. What advice would you give to somebody who's interested in working in college athletics at any level? What would you recommend to them when it comes to giving themselves the best opportunity to find a job in college athletics or in sports? What would you suggest?
I think the number one thing that I have learned is you have to be a lifelong learner. You can never go into any situation thinking that you know everything, or that maybe you only just know the start of it. It is the athletics world. Everything underneath the NCAA is changing. What it seems like on an every week-to-week basis. You need to understand that you need to keep up with the times. You need to be okay with learning every single week. And that makes a really good staff member. Somebody that, I give a task to and says, I might not know this, but I'm going to go figure it out. That is, in my mind, that is college athletics. It is figuring it out, doing a little bit of research, finding the people in the world that have done it really well. You don't always need to rewrite the book. The book is already written. Go find it, adjust it to what makes it best for you, and with how you coach, how you supervise, how you manage, how you lead. But you don't need to always rewrite things. So be a lifelong learner. And in terms of getting that job, you need to get out there. It's the networking. I watched it earlier today, your podcast with Matt Elkin. I graduated with him and I stay in contact with him. He heads the Jewish Basketball Association, and our women's basketball coach here is a member of that as well. They're very well connected. So it's making sure, and Matt's at Division I men's basketball. The connection that we have isn't necessarily going to overlap that much, but it's the Northeastern connection that we built, that we continue to have those conversations. It's all of that is important. We don't know where we might cross in the future, but holding on to those contacts that you have and making sure that you build those genuine connections with folks is incredibly, incredibly important. So utilizing your network to find that next job, and it might not be an immediate impact of getting that next job, but 5-10 years down the line it might. So I would say those two facts, I guess, is being that lifelong learner and also having that genuine network.
Great advice, Olivia. And the alumni network is so important. And we try to stress that at Northeastern and within sports leadership because we have almost 20 years worth of alumni. And it's happened in the past for you where you've hired one of our students who is graduating into a position and you trust that somebody coming through the program is going to be prepared and ready to step in and do the job. And it's a huge advantage. So that alumni connection is very important.
Sorry, these lights are automatic. No, completely agree. An alum that we ended up hiring, I came back to speak on a panel, I believe during the Summer Institute a few years ago. And before the panel began, we were sitting at the tables eating dinner, and he came up and he said, "I know you have a job opening. This is who I am, Jonathan Wilson." And he made an immediate impression that he was just a go-getter, that he knew what he wanted, and he had done his research. He made that very, very apparent. We ended up hiring him, I think, 2 to 3 weeks later, which anybody in higher ed knows, turning around a position that quickly is it's magic at times. And any time that the position that he held is open, me and his supervisor say we need to find another Jonathan. I knew him coming from the program at Northeastern. He had the knowledge, he had the work ethic, and he had the experience to come in here and hit the ground running, and that's what he did. He took that position and kind of was very similar to me, said, what else can I do? He took on compliance at one point. Now he's down at UConn, raising some money for the UConn Foundation and doing incredibly well. And I couldn't be happier to have been able to hire an alum of that program as well.
I agree, 100%. All right. Well, thank you, Olivia Berry, for joining us today on the Sports Leadership Playbook podcast. Thank you for all you do for the program as an advocate, always willing to talk with students and share your experience. So thank you for joining us. Dr. Robert Pryor signing off. Have a great day.